Gossip is the devil's telephone. Best to just hang up.
Hello ladies and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, hi, my name is David and you have landed yourself on episode 22 of my series called Dismantling Hate. We look at some hateful things online, whether that's transphobia, homophobia, racism, xenophobia, and I am here to give you practice looking at these hateful things so you can combat some of these things that you find in real life, because sometimes it's really hard to stay composed in the face of somebody who is being discriminatory. So I hope that watching this series you are able to start those harder conversations when it's not so easy to become regulated. But I'm also here to provide for you a little bit of comedy, a little bit of research, and a little bit of neuroscience. So if you love the sound of my voice, if you want to see more content like this, check out my Dismantling Hate playlist here on my YouTube channel. Leave a like, tell me what you think in the comments, subscribe to the channel. All of those things really help to support me, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. Now today, we are going to be looking at the Frank Rodriguez show. Frank Rodriguez is a character that I came across when I was reacting to the Gays Against Groomer YouTube channel.
We've been robbed.
Now, I don't believe that Frank is associated or rather works for Gays Against Groomers, but I know there is some sort of an affiliation because he does have a video that's posted on their account. So today we are going to be looking at his first episode of a podcast called BFM Podcast. But before we get started, bestie, I do want to say, please do not contribute to the culture of hate. Please do not go to his social media or YouTube channel and leave hateful comments. You can go there and question, you can be critical, assertive, maybe even a little bit spicy, but do not contribute to the culture of hate that a lot of these people are purporting against queer folks, and honestly a lot of disenfranchised folks. So we may not have Michelle Obama's arms, but we do have her attitude, because when they go low, we go high.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, David.
So with all of that housekeeping out of the way, I'm going to start painting my face while we react to the BFM podcast published by Frank Rodriguez, and it is called Walking on Eggshells Over Pronouns. Here we go.
BFM podcast, here we are. It's taken forever for us to get here, but surprise to everyone, we are having a Billy, Frank, and Mario podcast. Welcome, Mario, and welcome, Billy.
Hi, Frank. It's good to meet you. We're super excited.
Right.
We're gonna
That's the title, Billy, Frank, and I already forgot the third one, but now that makes sense.
whole variety of issues today, and we're hopefully be able to bring more of these issues every single week or month.
Right. Hopefully, if we can get here, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's important to know, like, we all know each other outside. This is not like our first soiree together, right?
We're
Like,
strangers getting to know each other. And
Right.
Be strangers, get together, do a podcast. No, none of that. Like, we know what we're doing. We've got really fun chemistry. And we
already felt each other out, know what each other thinks and believes and everything. So
yeah, it's exciting. I think what's funny is when I was prepping for this, right, I was like, well, how are we going to organize this? And then when everything comes together and we're here now, it's kind of like, we've all been on like these major platforms, and I just feel like we are now going to eventually be that major platform and like have guests and all that. And so like just being here, it's exciting. So we have a ton of topics to go over. We've all researched some things and submitted them and want to go over them. So Mario actually picked out one that pride is overrated here. So talk to us a little about that, Mario.
Well, I actually spoke on this weekend on another podcast that hopefully will be coming out soon, but for purposes of what we're talking about, I really feel that pride is overrated because, I mean, you see it's corporatized, you see gay people living their daily lives in everyday society. I'm one of those types of people. Me and my husband, we walk anywhere. You know, I've gone into a double wide that converted into a bar in the middle of Missouri, and I walked in like no problem, and nobody cared about your sexuality as long as you're a good person. So, you know, this idea that we have to focus on people for an entire month, ooh, you know, you sleep with the same sex, like, hey, who cares?
Well, I agree. I think there's a
I don't... Sorry, the homophobia got my throat. This is interesting right away, right? Like, it definitely comes from a large place of privilege to be able to say that we don't need to have Pride Month because me as a person who presents as male feels safe even in Missouri, right? My one experience means that everybody should feel safe walking anywhere. So what do we need Pride for? There's almost like the performative gays, and then there's like the gays that stay home, if we're going to participate in a false dichotomy here. But he would be one of those gays that stays home. But the privilege comes in is that he's still mask presenting. He still looks masculine. He still looks like a man, which unfortunately is at the top of the patriarchy. He's just one little tick down from having the most complete and total social power, right? Well, maybe more. I don't know anything else about this man. He might have other things that take away from his privilege, but ultimately male passing privilege is a huge thing. We need pride, we need these conversations to still be taking place because masculinity usually is fine. Masculine queer people, I would argue, have an easier life experience than feminine queer people, and that's where the difference is. None of these people are feminine presenting, And I honestly am not completely feminine presenting, but I can really feel the difference of how I'm treated out in the world when I'm masc presenting and when I'm femme presenting. There's a really big difference and a nuance that they're missing here. Oh, but one other thing here too is the corporatization, is that a word, of pride. And I think that's really gross, and that's a conversation that's worth having as well, because a lot of these big companies are essentially exploiting Pride Month in order to make more money. They're using it as a marketing strategy instead of like a philanthropic endeavor or like a cause they actually care about. They're just catering and making a bunch of ugly rainbow stuff because they know queer people will buy it. And I have a problem with that. So I can agree with that part right there.
If I would, like, say, completely do away with it, I don't mind people having like their own private celebrations, sort of like a wedding anniversary, or I don't know. But I think if you want to normalize it, then it's not normalized if you spend a whole month constantly shoving it down people's throats. And I think, and me as a gay man, I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of it. And so I understand that a majority of heterosexuals would be sick of it. They're just being polite. I think they're being polite, but it's being tested as well.
I mean, Frank can probably chime in on this too. It's overly sexual. Pride has become so overly sexual. I mean, that's all you see is, debauchery on stage, whether it's on a parade, whether it's on a float, whether it's in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, you name it.
Well, he said Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, which are like famously the super gay cities. Like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about Pride Month, or are we talking about over-sexualization? Because I think those don't necessarily come from the exact same context as well. Like, not all Pride events are over-sexualized. There are a lot of family-friendly Pride events. So they're kind of like grouping all of these things together. Is like, hey, you know that gay stuff? TM, like, that gay stuff that happens all the time? Don't you hate that? When, like, are people actually picturing somebody who's over-sexualized? Are they picturing somebody who's masculine or feminine or gay or trans? Like, what are they picturing? Because if you're not being specific, then that leads to a lot more assumptions, and those assumptions become dangerous because then people are only relying on stereotypes if they do not have the representation of things like pride. It's gross to me that you're sick of Pride. You might be sick of some of the things that you've seen there, but Pride as a whole is there for a reason. It's a celebration of an incredible amount of time and hard work that has been put in by the queer people who have come before us. Like us, me included, with all of these three men together. So it's so privileged, and it's very uneducated to say that Pride should be private. I haven't even started my makeup yet, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. I'm gonna do pink and yellow, maybe with a little bit of gray to, like, the aesthetic. You get it, okay.
Didn't they cancel Pride because they couldn't do something that was appropriate for family and didn't involve children? And so that's really where I kind of say it's really overrated. Just live your lives.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And every time people bring this up, especially in our community, it always raises like a question in the back of my mind, like, what was the original purpose of the LGBT community? Wasn't it just to be accepted and acclimated into society? We didn't want anything special. We didn't want to be seen differently. All we simply wanted was to be able to go to dinner with our husband or our boyfriends, be able to go in spaces that are areas where we can, express ourselves like a gay club, and it not get shut down or raided by the police. But you look at it now and you look at these festivals, like, what bothers me is these festivals are so like overtly sexual, and then you bring up this topic about Pride being overrated, and it's like, I feel like it's just lost its whole intended purpose, and it's really, really been weaponized. And like this article you brought up here, there's a quote that I'm highlighting that says, claiming that a gay person needs to vote a certain party, or what is that? Situate themselves on a certain point of the ideological spectrum is to use someone today for pop psychological terms, gatekeeping and gaslighting. To me, that's
we know that phrase, gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss. That's a phrase we know very well. There was something there that is true. Like, you can't assume that just because somebody is gay that they're liberal. And I've seen comments on my channel of like, you're just a liberal woke speak. You're just a liberal sheep. Is that the sheep? Because I'm just following. Is that the thing? But like, ultimately, I don't necessarily know or agree that I see myself as liberal. I don't see myself as conservative. I don't necessarily see my beliefs as a whole lining up with any political party. I think that's very pigeonholy, and I don't know what I get out of labeling myself as something like that. Kind of like gender. The funniest thing in the world to me is when people leave like a hate comment and talking about like people with pronouns and that, but in order to tag me in a comment, they have to write out my pronoun, which is they, and that's why all of my stuff says David Days, because it not only it pays to advertise, but then also people are forced to use my preferred pronoun when they talk to me online, which is hilarious.
Exactly what the gay community is. Like, you saw this when we were in Utah Pride, when they kicked out a drag queen for thinking differently, and it's like, not only is Pride overrated, but it's almost like a cult like seminar, right?
Yeah,
For the
you
LGBT
have to worship
community.
at their altar of pride. Otherwise, if you're not worshiping at the altar of pride, or you stand out in any way, shape, or form, you're going to be ostracized. I went to LA Pride with another creator. You remember him, Christopher Drew?
Oh, yes,
And we went with Ricky Rebel and a couple of. We wore our MAGA hats, and I hadn't got out of my car 30 seconds, and someone starts yelling the F slur at me because I have a MAGA hat on in the middle of West Hollywood. They're like, F you, and I'm like, oh, okay, Wes. So,
But isn't
Well,
it?
yeah, wearing a Make America, like supporting Donald Trump in West Hollywood, like, sure, that would probably not be great in the same way that if I went out in full drag in rural Texas, it wouldn't be great. It's because people are discriminating against you. But the problem is because you might think, oh, David, you're throwing stones from a glass house here. Why can't he express himself in the same way that I want to express myself? Which is true. But my expression can only do with me, right? His expression of Make America Great Again is the whole intention behind Make America Great Again is acting upon other people, right? It's this framework of what I think other people should do, right? But for me, it's personal. It's what I should be able to do for me in my house, not what I think other people should be doing in a parade. You know what I mean? One side is personal and the other side is external, and your beliefs can't push upon somebody else's experience of life, right? It is like it, even to me right now, it kind of sounds like doublespeak, but we'll probably talk about this more as we go on.
Isn't it weird that you could go into West Hollywood with that hat on and you will be attacked, but you can go with your husband in Missouri and be safe?
Exactly.
And that's the funny thing about this whole pride thing is to me, it's not even breeding pride. It's breeding hate. It's breeding separation. And if you come to think of it, just as a just basic homosexual men, to me, pride was in the beginning, like, okay, if we're tolerated. I don't even need to be accepted. I just need to be tolerated, or just leave me alone. Like, I don't need to know one way or another what you think. But I still have to be strong enough to know what your opinion is. If we live in a society that values everybody's opinions, so I don't really need you to support me. I just need you to leave me alone. But when you talked about what really is the intention of pride, and I always thought the difference between me and a heterosexual man was just who I slept with. So isn't it inherently all built around sex?
Yeah.
I argue that point all the time, is especially when these teachers want to put pride flags in their classroom, it's like, well, what does that flag inherently represent? And it represents someone's sexual preferences outside of heterosexuals. And
Like, yes, but also like specifically for the teacher example I can speak to, because I was a teacher for 4 years, you can say that the pride flag inherently is connected to sexuality. And I can understand what they're saying, but I do think it's a limited view. However, like, think of all of the teachers. Like, I remember in grade 7, my teacher was passing out her wedding photos, and like everything, like, that implied her sexuality. Did it not? She got married to a man. How many people get married as teachers? That implies sexuality. How many people wear wedding rings? That implies sexuality. How many people, even if you think of the way that women's names are in professional settings, right? Like Miss or Mrs., right? So Miss is MS and then Mrs. is MRS. The Miss is used if you're not married and the Mrs. is used if you are married. Now, the apostrophe in the MRS is the possessive of misters. So what that is, like, you have MR apostrophe S, which is Mr. apostrophe S. So it implies ownership. It implies that the woman being married and changing her name to Mrs. is now in relation to the ownership of her husband. Does that not imply sexuality? So the way that even our language is built is in this view of sexuality, if you are going to follow the rabbit hole down every piece of the human experience that then relates to that human sexuality. I think it's reading too far into it, because kids don't have that understanding of sexuality. They have it of an understanding of who you love, and they can identify with that because they love people too.
have these labels on it, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, but ultimately the only thing that distinguishes us is who I like to lay with at night, who you like to lay with at night. So it's not necessarily anything else other than that. So yes, it is inherently sexual. And I think that that's why, like, when they...
Isn't it more than that? Isn't it the expression? Like, there's not just sexuality, but there's expression implied too. Like, if I think of myself right now, I am not a gay man. I am neither of those things. But honestly, none of that is your business, and it doesn't matter. But the way that I look at my expression here, I am putting on this makeup. Is this something that you would see a heterosexual man doing? Probably not. But that might be participating in that culture of sexism as well. So I can see the problems with that. But I don't think it's just sexuality. I don't think it's who you lay with at night. I think there's so much more. And I don't think these people view anything else as that so much more, which is maybe why they have these viewpoints.
say it's not, I want to look at them and it's like, well, look what happens at Pride. It's like everything is sexual. People are pretty much naked and
They
naked.
are naked. There is the people riding the bikes naked. There are people standing around naked. You know, they're saying, "Oh, nudity is not sexual," but inherently, you don't want young people, young children, to be exposed to that. We have to be tempered. What I was talking about this weekend with a group of gays, and I was saying we have to start policing our own community because yes, it is our sexuality that makes us different, but we can't allow our bedroom behavior to trickle out into the street. Because if you were straight, we would call you out, and we happen to be homosexual, so we should be able to call out our own community without becoming social pariahs, which is exactly what's happening.
Right, and I told the gay community that myself, and it's like, you expect white people to call out other white people for racism, so why can't we police our own community? If we see something that's degenerate, perverted, or things that we don't agree with, we should be the ones that stand up for it, so they realize the whole community isn't like this. People like us should be respected, but we're not. But we're respected, funny, by the enemy, the supposed...
The quote-unquote enemy. The
right, the right.
Right. They're
right.
Who respect us the most. They're the ones who invite us to break bread. They're the ones who invite us to pray with them. They're the ones who invite us to stand side by side with them, whereas the other side just...
Break bread, pray, yeah.
Oh, they just hate you, and they'll cast them all with a single broad brush.
But it's like, but we're here to say we're not hated. That's the thing. Okay, so at what point do you believe us? So we are gay men who have never been bashed, never been, beat up or anything, and we're respected for who we are. We're not necessarily accepted for what we do in the bedroom, but we're not bringing them in the bedroom anyway. I don't care what they think about my sex life. I don't care.
But how lucky is that you haven't experienced that? I'm mind blown that you haven't experienced that because I would consider myself probably a lot younger than this man talking at least, and I've experienced so much of that. And it's because for me, queerness is not just sexuality. It's because I am a masculine presenting person to a lot of people who engages in femininity. Is often what is criticized or bullied or called out or discriminated against by people who effectively hate women, right? There's a huge part that misogyny plays into all of this as well, because they're saying, hey, wear a mask and nothing happens to me. What about your feminine counterparts? They don't have the same experience.
And if we have the same values, we have to fight some of these fights together. And, and we agree that Pride is oversaturated, it is sexualized, and it's not for children.
Billy, you raised a good point that I wanted to bring up. It's like they don't care what we do in the bed as long as we don't push it onto them, and we're not inviting them into our bedroom.
Right.
So ultimately, then I want to ask you guys this question. So if we think differently and I say we can't be friends unless you have the same outlook as me, what do we call that nowadays? I feel like that's a cult.
That is a cult. That is a cult, because when you watch the Branch Davidians, you couldn't, speak against the cult thought and the ideology. If you did, then you get excommunicated. And I've had people from the LGBT community say to me, "You can't come. You're excommunicated." They use those exact words, which only further, adds to the theory and the weight that they are in a cult. It's a cultish behavior because they don't want to hear anything about it.
It's become a secular religion, and it's like. That's why I'm going back to, we're not accepted by our own community that's supposedly loving and all accepting, but we are accepted by this rigid, overly religious group of the GOP. That's where their whole ideas fall apart. Is because
Isn't that a red flag for you as a person though? Because why is this extremist group letting me in when my own kind aren't letting me in? That would be a huge red flag to me as a person in their position. So that strikes me as really interesting.
the living experience of it, and we're here to tell everybody about it, but you just want to completely, excommunicate us, basically shut you up and make you disappear, because they don't want people to hear this message. They want to hear the pop culture, most popular opinion that's out there.
So talk to me a little, before we move on, and we'll touch base on this, talk to me a little bit about what the Pride community was like in the beginning, because I have a sense of what it was for the last 31 years, but when you look at statistics, we didn't really have, yes, there was oppression during my time, but when you look at the data, for about a generation, maybe, I would say 7 to 10 years younger than me, had it much worse than the people in my generation. So I feel like when you went to the LGBT, and this is just me guessing, when you went to the LGBT community 30 years ago, it was nothing like it is today, and it was more open and welcoming and just a little bit more humane.
Yeah, I can say that.
Yeah, what I think is great is we're all from
Three different generations.
10 years basically between all of us. Yeah, and I think that's interesting. We can speak from a different point of view on that.
Yeah, because I've never seen anything, but I can go back and I can see, in the history, Fred Sargent and believe it or not, the first gay Republicans that existed, they were the ones who really started Pride. It was a group of conservative gay men who just wanted to be accepted by society. So their original
Pride was not started by conservative gay men. Are you kidding me? What? No, that's not true. That is not true.
They say it was a riot, but it's because these people were just average, regular people just wanting to exist, and then they actually got, obviously oppressed by the authorities. So then they had to step up, and that was why they say it was a riot. But these people, these new wokerati, I call them, the far left, these young generation who are trying to rewrite history, which freaks me out because I read 1984, and they're trying to say, oh no, it was Marsha P. Johnson. She threw the first stone. She wasn't even a she. She was a he. He was a drag queen, and he chose to turn himself into a woman because the facade of being a drag queen made him so much more powerful. Oh, and affirmation and attention. Of course.
Transphobia. How gross to say that somebody who's trans and a drag performer is only doing so because of the power and, okay, maybe it's the power of femininity then, which is still what these people are afraid of. It's kind of working for my narrative here, at least. I mean, of course, these are all my own, these of course are my own opinions, so I may not be right, but I don't think I'm wrong.
want to live that life? Oh, very easy. I know many queens that have done that. But they use their queen for persona to create this new identity that they choose to live in, and then they say, oh, now I'm trans. So Marsha P. Johnson was not a trans woman at the time. She was a man, and she was part of this gay conservative group that decided to step up and want visibility.
And you know what? And you know what I see? Also, people saying, well, they didn't have a.
That's so interesting. I'm not educated enough on the timeline, and I'm not educated enough on the timeline of transition of Marsha P. Johnson here, so I can't really speak to that. But that strikes me as wrong. That strikes me big time as wrong. Wow. This is just out there, folks. This is the stuff that people are putting online. Good Lord.
Back then, like, she was a trans woman but didn't know it. No. There have been trans women since our parents have been alive. So to say that all of a sudden, no, there's more trans people now because now they're being allowed to be themselves. No, they've been allowed, there have been trans people our whole lives. It's just become this fad or whatever. And I think it also, we've accepted basically these eccentric people and allowed them to call themselves LGBTQ, XYZ. It's like you color your hair.
Eccentric is code for feminine, I believe.
And you only have sex underwater is now a gender. I mean, it's like, so, and now you can call yourself.
But that like hyperbolic, pejorative, infantilized glitter speak, like that's just in place when somebody doesn't actually have an example. So they're attempting to be funny. As you can tell, it worked on that one guy's face. They're trying to be funny because they don't have anything of substance or value to say. So whenever somebody in this context is using that sort of language, pin that as a red flag.
Part of the LGBTQ community. Right. I had a coworker who was a heterosexual male him and his wife lived together, and they had a girlfriend. Okay. Because his wife does not like having sex with him. Oh. But he's allowed to have sex with this woman, and she is allowed to have sex with this woman. But and then he tried to like bond with me when he found out I was gay. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm part of the LGBTQ community too. And I wanted to say, no, you just have a freaky heterosexual relationship. You have a woman who isn't sexually attracted to you.
Well, if that's freaky, how is it, like, make it make sense, man. Like, how is it's not just queer people you have a problem with then, it's just people in general? Because in this situation, from the limited view of sexuality, this man in a relationship effectively with two women, that's not queer for him. So that's ethical non-monogamy is fine.
What's going on?
Totally, that's exactly what's going on. And it kind of brings us up to this point that you brought in your point, Billy, that you sent in, is about this poll here. So they did this poll with Rasmussen report? Rasmussen report. In general, do you think businesses do too much or don't do enough to celebrate LGBTQ Pride Month? The Democrats said too much at 38%, not enough at 23%. Republicans was too much at 67%, not enough at 13%, and Independents at 43%, and not enough at 15%.
All demographics say they're doing too much, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent. They say you are doing way too much.
So this isn't a conservative thing. This is a human thing. This is a humanity thing.
Corporations doing too much for Pride I can get on board with, but not everything else.
Everyone thing.
And if you actually combine the Independents with the Democrats, it's actually more than the Republicans.
It is.
Oh, that is a good point right there. So who's really the homophobic ones?
Right. I mean, if you had to pick the group with, once you combine everybody who agrees and then separate the Republicans, I mean, the larger group of people do not agree with.
Right.
They're sick of it.
Well, I mean, you literally, how many times, as soon as June comes around, every week. So you guys, we see it all the time with the corporate logos. As soon as June comes around, everybody throws the rainbow. I mean, from TGI Fridays, and it's just too much. I don't even see a straight white couple on TV anymore. I mean, it's just so inundated with, they must be interracial, they must be.
That's crazy. He's like, when I was a kid, there were only white people on TV and things were better. That's crazy. Like the corporations using Pride to make more money, I can get on board with how that's stupid or harmful or exploitative or any of that, but all of this other stuff.
Intersex, they must be this, they must look gender non-binary, you must look like this particular way in order to make these people feel included. And it's like, I don't need that inclusion. I just want to live my life. And
You don't need that inclusion, but other people do.
Me alone. And as I live my life will exemplify, hey, you know what? These people are really good people. They live in our society. They're contributing to us in a positive way. And that's what's going to increase acceptance, not flashing rainbows on the TV.
And when I went to school in the 80s, and my biggest problem with school was with other kids. It wasn't even outside of the school. And I'm sure that culture is changing in school, and maybe, I'm not saying it's ever good to bully, but it's probably gone so far to the other side that these people are actually celebrated instead of bullied, which I think even has the same negative effect, to prop them up now on these pedestals rather than to treat them as equal people. And so my biggest problem growing up was in high school. And then I can also say this, I'm assuming that you guys were also raised in Southern California. We may have a unique experience being raised in Southern California, but the culture is also here that's against us as well. We do know that. And now I don't know how prevalent it is in other states, but they keep telling us how liberal we are. But we all have experiences living in this ultra liberal place of negativity.
Correct.
And so hasn't always been rainbows and unicorns. Sure. But I grew up going to Palm Springs a lot as a child. My grandmother lived out there, and that was my first exposure to the rainbow, the pride flag. And I didn't know what it was because I believe it came out in '69-ish, around there, which was when I was born. But my first noticing of the pride flag was there, and then when I realized it was connected, I realized before I was an active gay male that it signified a place for gay men to go and to be around each other. That in my simplified mind at the time, that's what it meant. I was able to put all those pieces together. So I knew once I became a sexually active male that I would seek this flag out to find sex.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that back then when it initially started.
Yeah.
And I was kind of raised after the whole handkerchief culture.
Oh, yeah,
That's a big one.
Yeah, so to me,
All the different colors and
the
stuff.
flag replaced it. Yeah. I had to read about it. I was never taught this in the gay community. It's this exists here.
Yeah.
So,
There's a whole manual.
so, I know the culture has changed. It's gotten better for gay people, but I think just because it's gotten better for gay people, it doesn't have to get worse for everybody else. And, us being a part of the culture, we constantly...
How is it getting worse for everybody else? You are the ones... That's wild. First of all, the pride flag doesn't signify where you go to have sex. As a queer person, I've never once thought that. And maybe then you are viewing sex as something maybe transactional or something like that. I don't know. There's more to unpack in that statement, but I don't have the time.
And then when Pride Month comes along, now we really get an injection of it. And it's but we see it all year round. It's Pride year. It's not Pride Month anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree 1,000%. What you submitted here has this quote here right below that tweet. It's Rasmussen discovered that about a third of regular Target shoppers, 35% are turned off and are less likely to shop there now. Just 25% said they are more likely to shop at Target because of the line of clothes and the large percentage. 37% it doesn't make a difference. So just by this, Target lost 10% because of what they did during Pride Month.
35%.
Right, but they said, 25%.
35%.
Oh, and the other 25% were less likely.
Were less
So
likely.
what does that tell me? If I'm thinking about this, it's almost being forced. So people don't want to go somewhere where they're going to see it because at this point they're tired of seeing it. Not that they hate us, because it's one thing if you see statistics like this, they lose 35% of their sales and there's 35% increase in hate crimes that are actually happening in prosecutions. But in reality, the hate crimes aren't increasing. What is increasing is people's distaste for it. And this is where I'm starting to think if we don't start scaling back and become acclimated like we were talking
To meet the expectations of other people around us, we're going to be threatened with violence. And he's saying that's okay? That's really gross. That's really gross. I don't think anybody should be modifying their behavior to meet the standard of other people that mean nothing to them. Sure, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, there should be no difference. And that's really gross. Okay, Target lost sales because of the Pride line. Okay, who cares? Don't shop at Target. People were really upset over the Target Pride line. It's don't shop there then. What?
is just be a part of society, we're going to start making people violently angry at us. And it's at what point does it...
What a self-hating thing to say. What a self-hating thing to say. We are going to make people angry enough and we are going to make more people that hate us? No. Sorry, man. That's a big loss for me. Is that the right way? That's the right way. Not loser. Well...
There was was it the Magpie or something like that? She was attacked recently, and she was killed, wasn't she?
Up in Lake Arrowhead.
Lake Arrowhead, and then the attacker was killed by the
And
authorities.
they said it was because of the Pride flag.
Right.
And we still don't even know exactly all the details
Right.
yet, but that man's clearly crazy. If you walk into a store and you shoot someone because of the flag, I'm not saying that people should die over the flag, but I'm just saying people do get sick of it, and obviously this guy was mentally ill because a normal person doesn't do that.
This is upsetting. This is upsetting to say take your pride flag down so you don't get killed. I'm just sitting here in awe. I really am. This is shocking.
Saying a mentally ill man killed a woman in Lake Arrowhead, they turn it into a political thing,
Right.
Because of the flag.
Because of the flag.
Yeah.
That brings up a good point about the hate, that is there, that they try to at least misconstrued, right? Like situations like this where they're like, oh, well, Pride flag was involved, so let's make that the target for clicks and views. It really fear-mongers our community. I talk about this a lot independently.
You're talking about fear-mongering when that guy just said it's your fault if you get injured because of your pride flag? Get a grip. Oh my God.
It's almost like you want control over our community based off of fear. And Mario, you submitted this topic here, leaving the rainbow plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And it raises this question that I'll display on the screen right now. Is why patriots will always hate queer people, hate queers like us. What made you bring this up?
Well, because this is the argument that I get. They tell me that the patriots will always hate me regardless, and when you leave their cult, their plantation, I call it, that rainbow plantation, this ideology, they threaten me and they tell me that I'm going to be tarred and feathered. Yet, the experience is further from the truth. I've been to 3 Trump rallies in stilettos and braids, and no one cares. Everyone, in fact, remembers me. They speak highly of me, regardless of my sexuality, and I'm literally living proof. And it frustrates me that the media, nobody wants to even give me the time of day, because if they did, then you'd see a whole host of other people like me willing to step up and say, you know what, I don't agree with all of these things. I do want to think for myself. And that would just create a rush away from their school of thought.
You know, I would say, I think one of the first times that we physically met was at the Trump rally. And I was shocked because he like invited me and my partner, who happens to be, you know, another checkmark, a black guy. And so we show up at the rally and never knowing, you know, Mario or whatever, physically anyway. And then I realized, okay, he meets us and he goes, oh yeah, we're in the front. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh yeah, I've been here like for a day or two. And I'm like, I can't believe it. So he escorts us through the entrance, and we pass everybody up. We go like in front, like where the press line is and stuff, and we go to the front. And like eventually, Kayleigh McEnany shows up there and starts talking to him. And I'm like, I was like just trying to take it all in. I'm like around thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who hate me. But yet they were like very warm and friendly to me as I made my way up to cutting in front of them. These two gay, or a group of gay people cutting in front of them. And we're obviously gay. And we're in the front. And it's like, so this little homo with high heels, Latino man, is the person who put most into this and was first in line. And we were accepted and we were all fine. Mm-hmm. But it's like we walked down Santa Monica Boulevard with our signs saying "Save the Children" or whatever, and then we're completely like hated and bashed in
Hollywood.
In West Hollywood. And it's like the world is upside down and yet nobody knows it.
It's totally opposite, because when we talk about like where we're actually safe, like, you know, why patriots will always hate queers like us is has nothing to do with our personalities, but has to do with the vocal personalities that are projected from our community, that the media picks up for clicks and views and likes, that people post on their social media for the same thing. And it's like, but the moment we go to these places like a conservative convention, a trucker rally, which I'll touch base on in a second, or even a Trump rally where more conservatives are gathering, we find more people like us, and now we're starting to team up. I met Mario at a trucker rally to end the mandates that it was Adelanto that was going to take off, and I think they were driving to DC, and that's the first time I met him, and it was funny because I was struggling. I was like, you know, let me just try to find my people. You know, I wasn't really with the Democrats, and you know how the LGBT community is when you think differently. They don't want to be your friend. Yeah. And so I started going. That was actually probably, I think that was the first rally I ever did. I've never gone to a Trump rally. I've never gone to a conservative convention, but I drove the 2 hours to get to Adelanto in the freezing cold. Oh my God, it was so cold. And I remember trying to buy a flag, and I look over, I see this guy. I think you were in heels or you were carrying a rainbow flag. And I just saw him, and I'm like, there's no way my first time at a conservative event that I see another gay conservative. That's just not possible.
A very loud and bright one.
Yeah, especially Mario. So I go up to him and I do a quick little interview, and he tells me about his newspaper he's doing in Palmdale. And it wasn't until, you know, that we joined GAG that we met again, and that's like solidified this whole relationship. Is really, if you feel like conservatives hate you so much, how about you just go into a rally? Mm-hmm. Go into these events and see how they treat you. Because I'm treated with way more respect, way more humility and humanity when I go to...
I think a part of that is because these conservative people see these queer people as a monolith, and that maybe if they can have more queer people as a part of their cause, they can contribute this culture of hate by saying, we don't hate queer people. Look, there's that guy in heels over there. So I think they are being manipulated in order to feel like they are a part of these communities, because But with this man talking about like no mandates and the trucker rallies and the Trump rallies and conservative events, like we have a pretty good understanding of where this guy's coming from. So it all makes sense.
These events for conservatives, but the moment I go to to a woke or liberal school board meeting, I'm treated with vitriol, hate, violence, threats. They come to your home, they try to attack your property, they threaten your family, and it's like...
Well, Katie Holmes knows what it's like to lead Scientology. Let me just throw that out. So this is exactly the same. This is exactly the same. It feels the same, it looks the same, it smells the same, it tastes the same. And that's why, yeah, I picked that.
Isn't it funny? Like we can go to these like LGBT events, and we have to conform to them. But yet when we go to a GOP event, we can be ourselves.
Yeah, well, when you were managing the club,
yeah,
like we had to pretend that we're dressed like them, so we could go there and watch you perform.
You have to go in drag.
You do have to be drag. Exactly. I'm like, oh, how would a liberal?
You don't have to be in drag.
So we did. We had to put ourselves in drag so we could go into their space and watch Hagatha perform. Yep. It was,
I mean, and the funny thing is, I'm not going to say. I mean, we all know the gay community is fun, and it's like I'm resentful that we can't have that kind of carefree fun being ourselves there. And we have to conform to them, and it's weird because it's kind of like what they complain about the Republicans and the conservatives, that we can't be ourselves, and it's like. Well, you can. You're not actually brave enough just to do it.
Right. I talked about this weekend with the podcast that I was on. One guy, he was wearing this cute little skirt, mini skirt, and like a little old lady sweater. And I was like, oh, it's a cute outfit. Because I mean, I gender bend. I wear the heels with the suit. It was cute.
Yeah.
And when we took photos, I think I told you about it. He hid behind everybody, and he was just kind of like he was embarrassed. Like, oh, why? You chose this outfit. Be proud of choosing this outfit. You know, that's the best way to live your life. Is just the way that you were created. Because once you shine brightly, other people are going to see that and go, I like that. That's cool.
And it's funny that you had to tell them that. It's like you're on the wrong wrong side, and you're saying, no, be yourself, and everybody will accept you, which is what they used to say. And it's like, it's their own mentality that keeps them prisoners. It's like, you think everybody's going to hate you and they're going to bash you and are going to make fun of you, so you hide. But it's like, no, sweetheart, you have to have, if you're a man and you're going to dress like that, you have to have the balls to do it.
Yes.
And you have to be able to take the punches with the hugs. And it's like, and we have done that. And so we realize there's more.
Like, I understand what he's saying. If you have a lot of anxiety there, like, you can perpetuate that sort of thing. However, like, I'm fighting for a world where people don't have to have any anxiety going out dressing in any way that they want to. And a lot of far-right extremists really hate a diverse gender expression. So while these people who are attending these Trump rallies might feel safe there, not everybody would.
Punches. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost they're afraid to be themselves.
It's you see this all the time. I talk about this so much, and it's like, and correct me, when I came out, was there this fear of being unsafe? Yeah, of course, because it's in the back of my mind. But in reality, when people come out, it's almost like they're bracing for impact of something that's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
And you see these in these stories, especially even, it shocks me when it comes from like our older generation that are really elderly, and they talk about their coming out stories, and it's the same.
Oh, yeah.
These kids or these teenagers or young people are coming out bracing for impact, and the parents are like, you're celebrated now, you're embraced. And so it's like, to me, it's
not always, and that comes from just what an incredible place of privilege to say that, right? It's not the case anymore. Well, that's definitely the case for a lot of people.
It's like they're preparing for negativity, and it's like, if you're preparing for negativity, what does that say about your mental health?
Right.
Oh,
right.
shut up.
Preparing for the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and so for me, we have so much more love and respect now than we ever have before. And it brings up this point that you sent in, Billy, about a statement about pronouns. And it says here, my friend just got told he would be fired if he doesn't add his pronouns to his work email. He's upset and doesn't want to, but works for a big tech company and is well paid. He's likely to go take the cowardly route and obey. So now, what side of this? Oh, it was Mario that said it. Sorry.
No, but we can go talk about it.
Yeah. When you think about this, now it's almost like if you come out, the people you're coming out to have to brace for impact with all of the requirements that come from having to obey the community now. So Mario, talk to us a little bit about this.
Again, before Mario gets started here, is that, like, adding your pronouns to your bio, adding your pronouns to an email, like, is that really where you're going to draw the line of something that you find so upsetting? Every single person in the world uses pronouns. And it does, the people that are like, I don't use pronouns. I'm like, okay, well, did you pass grade 3? Because the grammatical structure of the English language requires pronouns if somebody is talking about you. So me saying he and him for these 3 people, they all have pronouns. If you're one of those people, like, do you want to, like, the English language... A pronoun is a part of the English language. It's not woke speak. It's like, hey, what do you want to be referred to as? It's not that complicated. And like going so far over the edge in order to not make people feel safe around you is really maybe what these people are going for, but don't realize it.
Well, I mean, I refuse to play this pronoun game because I'm frustrated by it. I mean, I look like a man, you can use male pronouns, but I also live in the gay community. We use she, her pronouns all the time. I think I even use she, her pronouns for Billy.
Oh, of course.
And vice versa, because that's just kind of how we talk. We're fluid like that. And now we've also used them as weapons too,
Yeah.
you know, because straight people get really upset, and you know, when the other side comes at us, you use the opposite pronouns just the way that they would think that a straight person would do it to a transgender. You do it to them, and all of a sudden they're mad. So I'm very much game of playing this pronoun stuff. But this person, as you can see, a lot of people are not willing to stand by their convictions and either push the boundary and they just obey. And I'm the type to push the boundary and dance all around the rules. We saw that with the mask during COVID, and with pronouns, I will use neo-pronouns on because I identify as a transformer.
He would get fired if he didn't add his pronouns. Why, like, if it's all a construct anyway, why do you even have to identify as a gender? I mean, why would you have to? Why can't he just be Jake Shields?
Why can't his friend just be that, whatever he wants?
Right, and just be a human. Then you're just a generic life form. You know what I mean?
That raises the point, like, if it's so fluid and it's such a spectrum, why does it matter
Yeah, I put
at
pronouns
all?
in my bio at work.
Why does it matter to you so much? You know, when I think of these pronouns,
It matters because some people don't align with people's perceived gender assignment to them. Like if I was a trans woman and wanted she, her pronouns, at least in the beginning, I wouldn't be passing as a woman. So I would want people to use she, her pronouns, and I would want people to know what pronouns I would use. It doesn't matter effectively to people who pass for their assigned gender, but you're then discluding people who don't align with their gender identity. And that's not just trans folks. There's lots of people out in the world. Like when I was a kid, I was confused for a woman all the time, and it really bothered me, right? So why are we putting in so much effort instead of putting in the smaller amount of effort in order to include everyone?
And I think if we all owned a Fortune 500 company,
Thank
I don't
God.
know if necessarily I would want to start enforcing people's personal beliefs or people's personal preferences, like in policy for the company. I think as long as you're just treating people nice and respectfully, that's great. But starting to enforce things like pronouns, I think is going down a journey of almost controlled speech in a way. And yes, you don't have free speech at work, but I don't know if I would control it to the point where I have to mandate what you say versus the things you don't say. And I feel like that's where we're starting to kind of get into very heavy waters. And you're starting to see people like we're building on this, like with pride being overrated, leaving the rainbow plantation, and now we're walking over eggshells over pronouns. It's like, how much conformity does this community need to be happy before someone looks at them and says, dude, it doesn't matter what everyone else says. When are you going to start being happy with yourself and accepting yourself for who you are and stop relying on everyone else to do it for you?
When I was on Tim Pool's show with maybe a girl, which I know we're going to get into, we talked about the pronoun thing, and I said, but how really important is it if you could change it all the time? Right. Like, if I could just decide tomorrow I'm a new pronoun, I mean, is that really fair to like burden that with the planet and then have to go into all my social media and stuff and change my pronoun? I mean, if you're going to sit there and say it's something that you could just select on an hourly basis, I mean, then it's stupid. I mean, it really is dumb. And think about this. I mean, I know I was a very mischievous child. If I was alive right now, I would be giving my teachers in the school the most to it.
If I was alive right now, okay, so his argument of like, if somebody can lie about their pronouns and do it to get attention, then it shouldn't be real. It shouldn't be respected. Like, get a break.
Oh yeah,
Like
totally.
they'll Billy, do you have some, excuse me, I'm Cindy.
You grab your pearl.
There is so much privilege to be able to speak like this, of like somebody can just go out there and randomly reassign themselves and like, most people aren't doing that. Oh no. I got makeup on my keyboard. Most people aren't doing that. That's not the reality. Sure, there are people who are being idiots with it, and that's true for anything, but most people are very earnest about their pronouns, and it just contributes to their overall improvement of their human experience. And these people aren't interested in lifting a finger to help anybody who doesn't have the same experiences as them.
You didn't ask me my pronouns today, and maybe that's what we need to do. The teachers need to go around the classroom before every class period, say, okay, what's your name and what do you identify as? No, so the teachers are safe all day long.
Attendance when they take attendance.
Right.
Instead of saying, here, say your pronouns.
Let's just go to the last four digits. Let's just go to the last four digits of our social security.
There you go.
Thank you. We so much here.
3651.
Yes. 35651 is such an asshole.
So when someone comes up to you, like let's say I came up to you, I want you to just initially react to this. Hi, my name is Frank Rodriguez. My pronouns are she, they. But what goes through your mind instantly when someone says something like that?
I honestly, I'll be honest. If you said that to me, I would really try to make that our last conversation ever, because I would know it's going to be a lot of work to be your friend.
Yeah.
Like it's already a lot of work. We know that. Very good as is.
Imagine going out to dinner with this person.
And pronouns I do. I mean, I have a metal ankle. My husband broke my ankle very, very early on in the relationship. We were wrestling. So I have a metal plate.
Are you okay?
Thank you. I might need a safe space later.
Okay.
I don't have one of those.
And like making jokes about safe spaces and that, like, first of all, it's not funny, not in the way of like, that's not funny, that's offensive. It's just not funny in the way that like, just that's not a joke. Like I just literally don't find that funny, and not in an offensive way. It's just, where's the twist? It's level 1 of comedy. It's giving middle school.
I use the pronouns Decepticon. I'll say like, oh, look at me, I have metal in my body, I'm part transformer. I identify as either an Autobot or Decepticon. Go ahead and use my pronoun. And I'll say the bot went to the store, and they're like, huh? Like, say, go ahead and say, he went to go get something from his car. Con went to go get something from his car. Your brain just goes, misfire.
Yeah.
So I will deliberately, if you're going to force me to do this, then I'm going to pick the most, brain-frying pronouns that you can and say they're valid, because they are.
Yeah, it's all valid.
These pronouns. It's one thing to argue he, she, they, them, right? But then when they start coming up with these
Frog.
Yeah, like, is that a neo pronoun? Like,
So yes.
Because here's the thing, even on your podcast, when Tim Cass asked maybe a girl, which we probably should save it for later, but I'm bringing it up now.
Yes.
She's like, well, what is a neo pronoun? And he's like, you're advocating. You're the pronoun police lady. Like, hello. So to me, when we're sitting here as these, like we mentioned, all of these generations laughing about this, and you look at the generation that's coming up, man.
That was
Can I say I'm glad? Okay. I'll say, okay, I'm 53. I am really glad. I never thought I would say it.
Hanging on by a pinky.
When I see these people who are being raised now, and I think, okay, in 20 years I'll be 70. If you're lucky enough to reach 70, I mean, a lot of people aren't.
Especially in our community.
No, it's true.
I mean, structural rock and roll.
Yes.
Your immune system fries, you're gone.
No, I would pretend it's not really like a big party culture, but it is. But it's like, I see these people coming up right now, and we already see like a lack of people in our workforce. And I'm like, by the time I'm old enough to be like in a rest home and have people change my diapers, who's going to be doing that? But I'm glad it's probably not going to be these young people today. It'll probably be someone maybe 20 years younger. It's not someone your age, Frank.
Someone like me.
You're still
It's a life.
you're
It'll be
still
robots.
saying,
It'll be robots by then.
I hope so. I find that because it's like, I know I'm going to get the same exact service all the time. And I don't want to talk to them when they're wiping my butt. That's it's so humiliating. I don't want to look, like, I'll stare.
Yeah, I'm gonna get tired of wiping your butt.
I'll just stare at them in the eye once they're changing me.
That is hilarious.
The one glowing eye. Hi, Harold.
When this airs, everyone's either going to think like, we thought of them as normal people, but now
crazy.
now I have reservations.
Now it's not even that they're gay. It's just they're weird.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk about this one here, Billy. You brought this up. Let's see. Sorry, I should have it on the screen already. She's failing. Oh, this is what I wanted to bring up real quick because we were on pronouns.
Oh, okay.
Can we talk about how I brought this up in my podcast before I bring up what you brought up, Billy? I'm using she for you and I'm using she for you. Wasn't there a time in our community that pronouns didn't matter so much and everything and every object, everything would just refer to she?
Go ahead, you drag, I think.
Okay, yeah. So that is something that I was not used to until I was around younger people. I mean, I don't recall men my age, gay men my age, calling me she or her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I looked at when I started working in the clubs and everybody was doing that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's like saying bitch or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't take it as a bad thing. But once they created this whole problem with pronouns, and now we have to really get exact and detailed and identify people as who they are, I thought about it. I go, well, I'm not she. I'm not a she, and nobody else calls me she except this group of people. And if it's that important, then I'm not a she. I'm a he. I mean, if it's really that important, then why are we playing with the word anymore? Mm-hmm. And so I understood, like,
So weird. Like,
says it, or his husband says it. I don't think anything of it. But it's when the pronoun police do it. I'm like, hold up. You never asked me my pronoun, and just because I dress up as a woman doesn't mean I am a woman, correct? I'm not a she if I dress like this, correct?
So is it going to be like the N-word for us? Like we can use a certain pronoun and these people can use my pronoun and you can't
Right.
use my pronoun? Could we do that?
I mean, is that how
that works?
Yeah, it's like, but the people who say, oh, we're all inclusive and we're diverse and we're this and that, we accept people, they don't accept the fact that I don't want to be a she. Because they think, well, you dress as a woman.
Or even queer.
So what does a woman dress like?
have you told them though? If you actually legitimately told them that it bothered you, would they continue to use your non-preferred pronoun against your will? I don't think so.
Remember, I thought it's all a social
yeah.
construct, right?
Right.
I mean, it all implodes. It does. It all, when you really kind of, but then they'll.
You hold them up to their own rules. This is what we've been doing
Yeah.
for literally years now. Holding them up to their own rules, and once you hold them up to their own rules, they fall
No.
down.
Well, they hate that. When you use their logic against them, they don't like it. The reason I brought this up is because if we're walking on eggshells now, I know at 21, when I was a part of that club culture, I'm very vocal about this. I was partaking in the culture that I did not like, and everything was she. So 10 years ago, it was not like this. Mm-hmm. It was not, we had to mandate people's speeches because in the culture, everything and everyone, regardless if you were straight, gay, bisexual, trans, a drag queen, a drag king, a diva or whatever you were a she. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's like now they've taken this fluidity of what we just did as a culture, and now they're trying to say, nope, let's do away with the fun we've been having with the words and not carry.
Well, because the colloquial use of she and her for people who are like in drag and out in clubs and in gay culture like that is a different thing from people legitimately using their pronouns in real life. Those are two different things. One is a colloquialism and another is the way that you talk about somebody in, like, even in professional settings. Like, yeah, okay, so if I have a male friend, I'm going to be like, hey, girl. But in a professional setting, I'm not going to go, hey, girl, to my, like, 50-year-old male boss. That's not how that works.
And just being ourselves and not being restricted to these labels. Now let's take it 100% back, and now let's force what we need to have said to us. Let's restrict people's speech of what they want to say to us, and now this is what's supposed to make me happy, and it hasn't. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you're stripping away all of these things and stripping away our culture and fully hijacking it now. But then we're vilified for bringing this up because at the end of the day, just to me, when you start advocating for all of these negative things that are hurting us, you're almost like an internal terrorist to our community. Mm-hmm. So let's talk. I'm glad we brought that up because it's something that I want to make clear is because when we're using like a she in this environment, it's not necessarily affirming that you're a woman. Right, no. It's just because heterosexuals don't really know our culture. So this is kind of their eye through the window here of what it is like in our community.
And I could add to that the whole she thing and the cultural thing in a drag sense. And I don't want to, I guess, defend the drag queens or the people who who aren't bothered by what they're doing in schools and stuff. But everything's not black and white. There's gray. And being on the inside of the drag world, when the Republicans, conservative people who are against it, when they came out and said, well, they say they're speaking to the children, I can say, because I'm part of the culture, the word children is used interchangeably like her or she.
Mm-hmm, yeah, because they call them kids, don't they? They call
the audience. The audience
my children.
Is the children. Yeah. And so, and this is, I guess, me not...
Oh, he's absolutely right. I never thought about that. That's an interesting thing to say. Okay.
Olive branch, but putting a truth out there that I think is often misconstrued from the gay community.
Yeah.
Is if they say, yeah, we're like backstage, it would be common, like, especially a more
Mature queens.
mature queen, a more assured queen, would say, yeah, I'm going to go out and I'm going to teach children something. And it would typically be like maybe like an older pop culture reference or something they may not know. And so they're kind of exposing them. So they, the audience is typically very young. So when they say that, they don't mean minors.
Little kids, right.
Right.
It's also important to distinguish here, now that you bring that up, is these older drag queens, these more, respected elder drag queens, they're not called drag queens, they're called drag mothers.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
So it's like, they're already put in a mother aspect for the queens that they lead. So it's natural for them to use this word children for their children, because at the end of the day, that's also the culture where you had to choose your gay parents. Because back then, when people were really kicked out, when people were really oppressed, and you were really
Oh God, that's a reach.
for your community, you would look for someone like Mario and his husband, or you and your husband to take us in. And that's where it became your gay parents, your gay family. They would use you
your
as your
drag
children,
mother.
your drag mother, your drag father if you were
They're trying to
woman.
create this idea of family.
Yeah, so it's an idea of family. So using that word children is not that there's little kids out there.
Right.
It's usually 18 up, and it's an adult venue with adults, and it's interchangeable language. That's kind of interesting because it makes you wonder, did that lead us down this road to be able to hijack?
Well, that's, and I've said this before, and I'm glad that we're doing this, but I think this is, I don't want to say it's too late. I just think this should have been done earlier, because there is no, when it comes to the LGBT community, I mean, who is the person you look up to? Who is, like, so you create your own families and stuff, but no one has created a leader that we can actually bounce things off of, and I think we're providing that.
Yeah, the media has literally given us this ideology of what we expect from a gay community. Look at Modern Family. But the reality is further from the truth. A very small subsect of gay men actually live that modern family life. But they'll put it out there like, oh, look, this is so good, and you're supposed to accept them all. But we know what happens behind closed doors. We know what happens in the clubs. We've actually had it happen to us, some of us. And that's part of the dark side that I think needs to be shared so these parents can really be prepared to have these discussions with their kids, because there is evil out there. There are pitfalls, and it's our duty as elder gays to teach other people, the younger generation, hey, there are these dangers, and we don't want to fall in them. If you do, that's on you. But I don't talk to kids. I want to talk to the parents and give them those tools so they by proxy can say, hey, I now know what's up, because they have no clue.
And you've probably had the same experience where I've had like conservative parents approach me and want to know how to deal with their LGBT kid, and it's like they feel abandoned by the actual LGBT community.
They do.
So now they have to now go and seek out people like us that could give them, sort of a sound advice of things that we've gone through, and give them tips and ways of how to navigate through the culture.
Or how to communicate.
Because the culture, it has completely blocked them out because they're conservative or Republican. And that's another reason why I say they should be glad we exist, because we exist as this bridge between the two. And you don't want to completely sever yourself from a community. Right. And that's what they're trying, that's what they're doing. And it's like, you can't do that.
So you mentioned that, and we're going to go ahead and skip to number 6 because it kind of ties into what we're saying.
Okay.
Gay only spaces, no girls allowed. Mario, you brought up this point here. Let's talk about it, and I will read it. It says, Florida judge ruling forces gay nude resort to allow women sparkling debate. A recent ruling by I'm reading this because this is important. I'll read the first paragraph. A recent ruling by a judge in Florida has generated controversy as it mandates gay and bisexual men's nude resort to admit women. The decision comes after a lawsuit filed by Amenia, who was denied a reservation at the New Orleans house in Key West due to its policy of exclusively allowing adult males 18 years of age or older. So talk to us about this, Mario. This nude resort isn't allowing women, or now has to allow women.
Yes.
So it was in policy, it was written, no women.
But what about our safe space?
Right. Well, okay, so
What is a woman?
let's call this what it is. This is a bathhouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay? This is a bathhouse. Palm Springs, full of them. Okay.
Yeah.
This is where gay men go to have sex with other gay men, and they have it freely, and they figure this is part of their culture. This woman, I guess, was there. She was there for a party. She wanted to rent a room. They said, no, we can't do it. We don't allow women. And that's a clear violation of, civil rights.
Yeah.
Sexual violation, discrimination against a person's sex. So that's why she sued them and is in the process of winning. Now, this is not the first time this has happened. There was a campground, a gay-only campground, that was also in the news a few years ago for the same thing, because they wouldn't allow trans men. Because again, it was basically a bathhouse turned into a campsite where you could just walk down the street, and the last thing they wanted was a trans person there who doesn't fit the narrative. And this is what we see, this cult, this plantation, that if you're not part of it, and don't you dare tell us how to run our businesses, because this is our culture. And
well, there's two different things here, right? I can understand if it was like somebody who identified as a woman trying to get into spaces where it's only men. Like I can understand that. But then like saying that in an all-man space, trans men wouldn't be allowed, then that's transphobic, and that I would have an issue with. I can understand the first one, but I can't understand the second one because it's not the same example.
I'm happy to see this, because the last thing that these gay men want is a woman walking around, because all of a sudden you're banging some dude at the poolside, you see a naked woman, it's like, oh my god, I can't get out anymore.
Start to hear.
But I think
But they're advocating for their own demise, and it's like at some point you're gonna say, well, wait a minute, it can't be all inclusive if we want exclusivity and,
Right.
and safe
Huge.
spaces. Like, how do you have exclusivity and inclusion at the same time? It just, I don't know.
It's funny to me because, well, one, you guys know me, I'm like ultra conservative when it
Yeah.
comes to like, sexual expression and those types of things. So like, one, I would never go to a nudist anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like looking at go-go dancers, let alone being in a room full of naked people. And I get really offended if my doctor changes on the days I have to drop my drawers because I feel so violated by someone I don't even know. And so it's like, to me, thinking of this, I wouldn't go, but I find it so hilarious that there's an uproar with it, considering that this inclusive community is inclusive with a whole bunch of with a whole bunch of carve-outs, with not this, but this, not this, but that. But it's funny to me because, like you said, you're calling this a nudist resort. No, buddy, it is a bathhouse.
Yeah.
It is where you're all shacking up and getting down and dirty and all these nasty things.
I bet they just happen to have lots of condoms laying around too. I mean, how many resorts do
Well,
find
you would be
condoms?
inclusive if you didn't. Like, it's the only way you can be inclusive is if you're giving out condoms and lube, apparently. Oh my God. So I wanted to bring up this topic during this gay-only spaces. We talked about this off camera. I just recently took my nephew, who is trans, to college. I won't say which college it is, but when we took him there, he approached me and talked about his dormitory, and we chatted about the layout, where it was going to be on campus, and he brought up that he's going to be staying in the LGBT dorm room.
Okay.
And so when we went, it's this separate building. All the dorms are. It's not like it's isolated, but all the dorms have separate buildings. And this rainbow room or this rainbow hall is built just entirely of LGBT people.
And is it decorated in rainbows?
It wasn't. I was expecting a glitter-covered building.
Oh my
That's kind of weird that you put all the queer people in one same space like that. I don't know. That seems weird to me.
God.
Yeah, I was expecting a glitter-covered building.
Not painted pink or nothing.
No, it was actually just normal. Like, you thought that was so homophobic that it wasn't
Really,
painted
what's
rainbow.
normal, Frank?
Exactly. So, let me ask you this. If they told us 50 years ago, oh, you're gay, you got to go sleep in this dorm.
This is a camp.
But now,
genociding.
right? But now you have gay people saying, oh, I do not want to sleep in a dormitory with heterosexuals.
That's like a fantasy when we were growing up.
Yeah, like the goal was to get straight men.
Right, that was growing up. That was the goal. I mean, things have changed apparently.
It's funny about dating. We wanted a man.
It's a male thing. It's a male dominant thing. Like,
Yeah.
you want to conquer the next hill. You want, and that's just innate in our nature.
Maybe that's like
That's a male dominance thing, is what he just said. Yikeroonies, am I right? Yeah, I think it's kind of weird that they're segregating the queer folks into the same thing. But when I was in university, I never stayed in a dorm. But if I did, I think I probably would like it. Even just for like that sense of community, right?
bro, alpha male.
Well, no, because in the gay community, they predate or they predate on the straight community. I've seen
Yeah.
it.
Well, because you want men. Like, I remember a time where you wanted a man, not a human with a penis who's dressed like a woman. I mean, in the drag community, that's one of their hugest complaints is I can't get a man because I'm dressed as a woman. And it's like, well, because gay men want men. And it makes complete sense. And, like,
It does.
yeah.
It does. And when you really think about it, this segregation that people are really advocating, you see this not just in the gay community, you also see this in people of color wanting, separate segregated places. And it's like, we came so far from that to be integrated, to be able to just be who we are and normalize it. It brings up the question when you segregate people based on LGBT status. My nephew, his dorm had 4 bedrooms in it, okay? And every bedroom had 2 beds. And so there was nothing separating the beds. There was no wall, there's no curtains, nothing, but it's a room with 2 beds and 2 desks. It's nice. I'm not gonna downplay it. But it brings up the question, if a female was to occupy one bed, but the bed next to them is someone that's transgendered, but they are a male with a penis, now you have a room with a penis and a vagina together. Does that not raise concerns at all?
How is that even a thing? How is that even a thing? Like, if they're, like, he seems to understand sexuality, right? He's taught, this brush is awful. He seems to understand sexuality. So how is he thinking that if there's a penis and vagina together in a room, that there's just automatically going to be problems? What if their sexual orientation doesn't align with that? It's really upsetting that we live in a world where we're putting the responsibility of people acting appropriately on the structures that kind of drop the ball and keeping them apart from each other. Why aren't we just teaching people from the get that they should be responsible for their own actions? You know what I mean? Oh my God. That's so wild.
And it might not for people, but for me, I feel like it takes away the person's choice without being able to express concern. Because if I was a female student and now I thought I was in an LGB room, now the person next to me is T, they're a male, Am I entitled to feel uncomfortable now?
No.
Can I be uncomfortable? Is that transphobic?
If you're an LGBT,
You can be uncomfortable, that's fine. Your feelings are always valid, but that is transphobic, absolutely. Because, okay, so if you're a woman and you're beside a trans woman, what if that trans woman is straight? Maybe she's not interested in you. And even if she was, to say that something nefarious would be going on is the transphobia.
space you're not supposed to be. But
Right.
they're just assuming we all are comfortable with it, and we
They assume
clearly
that
aren't.
everybody's gonna look at everybody else like Marilyn Manson
Yeah.
with the like white bodysuit. Like that's what you all look like. That's what you're all supposed to look like.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to visualize everybody. There's no asexuality. There's no nothing. Like that's the way you're supposed to treat each other. And that could be further from it.
And the thing is, you have to ask yourself, okay, so you have a room that's being occupied by a penis and a vagina. I mean, it's so weird that we have to now objectify people by their body parts, but that's what we have to do to be clear and concise.
Right.
So you have a penis and a vagina, in various dress or identification, occupying a private room together. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm comfortable with seeing maybe a person with a vagina walking around naked in front of me.
Right.
I mean, just because I may.
Now, would it specifically be the vagina walking around in front of you, or would it be the nudity walking around in front of you? Because I would probably have a problem with nudity in general, especially in a college dorm sense or in a roommate sense. But like to say that you're not uncomfortable, to say that you're uncomfortable with one specific body part, that's weird.
Share space. I shared a bed with girls that I don't have sex with. I don't want to see them naked.
Right.
Right.
Because then that kind of transforms, in the gay community, well, nudity isn't inherently sexual. Well, then why are you constantly being nuded in dark spaces?
Why do you
Doesn't even make sense.
I mean, you're telling me how nasty or how sexual nudity is by the way you behave.
Right.
So don't act like, look,
Can you see that people might have more than one experience in the world? Like, yes, nudity can be sexual, but nudity can also not be sexual. In the same way that being clothed can be sexual and being clothed cannot be sexual. I don't get it. Neither do they, clearly.
deal to see somebody with a penis walking around, which you certainly think it's a big deal. But yeah, when do you have, why does the inclusivity or whatever have always to do with a sexual preference or a gender? Maybe you don't want to see their body parts and, or they're we're we're different, they could say we're not.
Like, I can say that, period. I don't want to see anybody naked in a sense like that. I don't. It doesn't matter if they're trans or not. I don't want to see you naked, girl. Get out of here. Like, your preference for not seeing your roommates naked is valid, but only if it's a certain body part is weird. What?
But we are physically different, and maybe you're not comfortable around that.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's important.
because if it's physically different. So if this man has a penis, then he would say he's only comfortable seeing penises, which, I can understand, but he's also gay. So then wouldn't that imply the sexuality that they were just saying is dangerous with the penis and a vagina being in a room together? I'd just make it make sense.
To understand that in society, you're gonna feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It's normal.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, I'm not like, oh, I feel so comfortable right now.
No.
I can pick out 3 places that I feel uncomfortable the most. And for me, I don't require the people around me to conform for my ability to feel comfortable. If I want, for instance, I don't like using the locker rooms at the gym. I just don't like going into them because I don't like seeing naked people. It makes me very uncomfortable. And I just feel like, for me, and I understand that this is just my view,
Right.
the only person that I should be naked around is my partner. And so when I see other people, it makes me uncomfortable. And so I try to stay out of the locker rooms as much as possible. I'll take the long way to get to the sauna instead of cutting through the locker room. And I always use the outside restroom instead of going into the locker room. And so for me, I don't expect the people in the locker room, I'm coming in, so you all need to put your clothes on.
You sure
know?
this isn't Kitty Demure?
Oh.
This one.
Right?
What?
You're the Demure one. I'm so
I'm so opposite. I would totally, when I used to go to the gym, I would drive straight to the locker room.
Yeah.
But I did not, the opposite thing is I'm very modest about, people probably see videos and think I'm not modest, but me as Billy, I'm very modest, and I'm not even want to hardly take my shirt off in front of people. So I'll look at it all day long, but I'm just not going to give you a show. But I want to enjoy the show.
Not for free.
Oh, who's the one now that's sexualizing locker rooms? That's weird.
Remember that screen where there's a tip that's needed, please. So this brings up, who brought this one up? Who brought up playing straight? I didn't put the name down on that one.
Oh, I think that was me.
That was you.
Be straight.
Yes.
It's to kind of pretend to,
Yeah.
assimilate in society. I mean,
We come from a time where you had to do that.
where you had to do that.
Right,
Yeah.
let me read this.
And I think people still do it. They just don't admit it.
It says how to lead a heterosexual lifestyle if you are gay. In an ideal world, everyone would be free to be themselves at all times. However, because society frequently unfairly judges LGBT folks, you may feel compelled to pretend to be straight in order to be safe or accepted in your community.
Yeah.
If your family or community does not accept LGBTQ identities, presenting as straight may be safer. This article will help demonstrate how to do so. This is you, Billy?
Ew.
No, that's all right.
That was me.
That was you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mario, tell us about the time you had to play
Well,
straight.
I mean, I didn't come out till I was, 19, 20 to my parents, but everybody knew.
Yeah.
They just kind of know we growing up.
You know.
My grandmother looked at me and she's like, he's going to be different.
A close family sees it.
Yeah, close families, they already know. But this is part of it. Like, we see a complete rejection of this idea that when you're a man, you like trucks, you work on cars, or, you do horseback riding. I mean, I do all those things. I know you do. So we kind of live our lives, and they'll say, oh, you're pretending to be straight. I'm like, no, I'm just living my life. There's a couple of other things that maybe in some cases, I'm not going to be walking in and holding my husband's hand.
Yeah.
I was talking about that this weekend, where if I go to a church, I'm not walking into a church in heels.
Right.
Like, there's a certain concessions that I have to make as a gay man in order for them to accept me and see me, and it could be considered as playing straight because...
And that's exactly it. Well, you just said you're playing straight because there's concessions you have to make in order to be accepted by your MAGA friends.
Well, what, is he not confident enough to go into a church in heels? No, I am confident enough to go to a church in heels, but I understand there's a time and a place, and that is not the time nor the place, and so I make that concession. I quote-unquote play straight because I've toned myself down.
One can say you're even more comfortable because you can actually do the stuff without doing it too.
Right.
Because no, I don't have to bash myself over your head all the time. I can just shrink back into the group and just be a part of the whole unit and not
Shrink back into the whole group. That's really sad. This just got sad.
My mind, so the way that my mind works is when you read something, I have to think about it on the flip end to make sure that it's true on both sides, right? I want someone to tell me that we have a majority of straight people having to play gay to feel safe.
I have a story.
Tell us.
When I worked at the club.
Because being straight usually doesn't compromise the safety of somebody. He just said that he even looked at it from the other side, and that made sense to him. That made sense to him just now in this moment. That's shocking. All right.
When I first started there, I did security. And we had a security guard there. He was a Caucasian guy. I think he was from the Midwest. And I just say that because he stood out because it's like a 98% Latino customer base we have and employee base. So he really stuck out like a sore thumb and very Midwestern stuff. And he appeared to be very feminine. But I would watch. I'm a people watcher, and I just watch stuff. And I'm like, this guy's faking this. He was
leave it to Billy to catch it.
He was faking his homosexuality. And I said to him, I found out just through working the door, and you kind of get private and intimate with the person you work at the door with because you're working so close, and there's lots of times where nobody's there, so you're now just talking.
You watched who he was watching.
Yes, well, I watched who he's watching, plus who picks him up. And a woman his age with kids in the car picking him up. And come to find out,
Can't you be feminine and straight? You can be feminine and straight.
his wife.
Oh.
Okay? So he's working in a gay club and he's flirting with men. He's putting on this because he would answer you in "oh yes, honey," but it was very straight man, almost mocking gay people.
So offensive.
Yeah, and I'm like,
But they wouldn't eat it. They wouldn't get it.
no, and I'm sitting there thinking he's faking this. And I eventually started telling the owner of the club, and I go, not that he's a bad person, I think he's just having fun, and he's blending in, and he's just being a part of the party. And I wasn't offended by it, I just thought it was interesting that he was doing this, because then I would see him with like the dancers and things like that, and he completely acted differently in the way that I would act when I was a mechanic and a trucker around a population of what I assumed were heterosexual men. I all of a sudden dropped the tone of my voice, I didn't say so much, I kind of put my hands in my pocket and just kind of let, I wasn't
Shrunk would be the word he used before.
the gay person, I'm just Billy A. Man.
Right.
And, you kind of just become a part of this group. And so, that's what I'm saying. I understand why he probably did that, pretended to be gay.
We saw it with in Utah with Lady Maga's friend.
Yes, he did. I had to think about it for a second. He did. Okay, so this guy. So we go to Pride. We pick up Lady Maga, and she's gorgeous. She's dressed to the nines, all drag queen thing. And then she has this straight biker with her, and I'm like, oh,
You're gonna stick out at Pride.
I at least have short shorts on, okay, to kind of get it out there.
Like knee highs and like you know how I cut my shirts?
Yeah.
He has like a Led Zeppelin shirt that's
Yeah.
the same way, and I'm like.
So I think if I remember correctly, and chime in on this, Mario, we put a boa on him, glasses,
A hat.
They put a costume on.
Oh,
We
yes,
did.
yes.
We did.
And then we're like, now you have to play it up.
No, but it was the whole facade that changed in his mind from this big butch guy to, I'm gonna be gay now and I'm gonna come out.
And he was the cameraman.
Yeah, he was the cameraman.
They all know how to act like it, don't they?
It's just, it's hilarious. Gosh, that's funny. So when you talk about this whole playing straight, playing gay, it makes you ask yourself okay, so there is going to be a community that has to play straight, right? Mm-hmm. But I just don't. What really bothers me about these types of stuff is people will see this, right, and then okay, so you're in a conservative town in the outskirts of nowhere where they're very, very traditional. The very old place. No, I'm talking out there where sometimes Wi-Fi might be an issue, where your population is less than 20,000 people.
Ridgecrest.
It's going to be very different.
You know what? There were people who drove from Ridgecrest to go to the club that I worked at in Pomona.
Oh, that's
2-hour drive.
Yeah,
just
that is
to go
so
to
far.
Yeah.
For a club.
sorry.
But no. So what I don't like is it happening out there, and then people expecting people in Los Angeles need to do it, and it's
Yeah.
No, it's totally different, and that exception does not make the norm. But they use it to like weaponize people's minds to say, look, you see this? There's even a guide here. You know how they work. There's a guide here that teaches gay people how to be straight because they're such in fear. And it's like.
It's just there if you want to read it and be part of that. You don't have to.
Yeah, like there's some serious people that will need this resource, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of us don't have to do this.
The article was written literally July of this year. How really necessary is it in today's world?
You don't need that because you present as masculine. I've said this a million times.
It's funny because I know, like I said, we're going to get into the topic of maybe a girl, but I said the same thing. I go, I don't know, for people being so progressive, you guys really have old ideas because I don't understand that you are still feeling this pressure, and living in Southern California in a gay neighborhood, you feel like a victim? How is this happening? I mean, like really, like these are conversations people had 40 years ago, and you're pretending that this is still going on. But like anything, and I don't want too controversial, but like race hustling. Now we have sexuality hustling. It's like, it's an industry.
What does that mean? Can you explain, like, if I don't know what that means, like, what do you mean? Like, you can explain the race part. Like, what do you mean?
Like queer hustling?
Yeah,
like,
what is that?
Like, there's been so many transgender deaths. Attacks on transgender people are always on the uptick. Okay, full stop. Let's talk about the transgender community because many of them can't afford their transition. And the ones who actually do get the money for transitions are doing some nefarious things, making some nefarious deals with some very sketchy people. And the drug use is
What a weird generalization to say that all trans people are funding their transitions through nefarious things. That's so weird. Ugh.
prevalent in the gay community. So when that person can no longer pay their debtors, they end up, having to do things that they wouldn't want to necessarily do in order to pay these debts. And you're literally trying to make money. So you're going to hide parts of you.
Like, I'm trying really hard not to participate in the ad hominem fallacy here, but that was an idiotic thing to say. To say that people are funding their transition, and then when they can't fund their transition, then they're doing these bad things and they have to hide, and these people are so misinformed. It's weaponized incompetence.
The world in order to get that next pay. And when someone discovers what you have, of course they're going to be violently attacked. This happens a lot, and most of these
Of course they're going to be violently attacked. Gross.
transgender deaths are sex workers who are trying to pay off a debt for transition surgery.
And another way to try to control is like, well, 40% of trans youth kills themselves. It's like, well, if you have a population of kids that are killing themselves, and if you're not listening to it, and if you're not going to address it, then you're just a bad person. That's another way. I don't know.
There's been 518 anti-LGBT laws passed in the United States. I heard that argument as well.
Yeah, they said that a lot to you.
I'm like, oh, you mean against children? Like, let's not leave out the important word is children, and you are deliberately excluding that word to try to change the narrative of what's going on.
But then to ostracise someone like me who says, hey, I want to invite the NRA to my local pride so I can teach these gay people and these trans people how to defend themselves should someone decide to attack them.
You don't need guns to defend yourself, or I mean, ideally you shouldn't need guns to defend yourself. That's really sad and disgusting that they live in a country where there is no gun control. They need gun control. I have it in my country, so I am safe from that.
The monster, and I've never never asked to help you guys with pride again.
And they also don't see that the benefit and the flip side of that is that you've invited an NRA person into our space so they can observe us and they be acclimated to us and they can say, oh, these people aren't that.
And
There's value in that. There's a lot of value.
Because the NRA looked at it and they said, hey, what's this trans woman? I don't understand. And we explained it to them and they went, oh, well, we offer free women's classes as a normal course. If any woman wants to learn how to use a firearm, my local NRA will absolutely give them a course for free. And they said, well, trans women are considered women for us because they would be deserving of this. So, and including the trans men because they're biological women. So they literally opened up more of their opportunities.
We were so close to inclusion. So close.
Be safely armed and understand and be able to protect themselves, but I'm the monster who wanted to invite them in.
But it's also great because trans people that think like us are normal humans, and they're not going to go in there into an NRA like situation and behave the way that we see on TV and these hypersensitive people. They will see themselves. Oh, there are normal trans people. They're not all these freaks. So it's like, but like I said, our community, they refuse to see the benefits of what we do. And I don't think they're so selfish and self-centered. They haven't really thought about the whole community as a whole. There are people who want to shoot guns. There are trans people who want to defend themselves. Guns are a great equalizer. And so it's like, why would you not want to defend yourself?
Totally, I agree with you 1,000%. I'm kind of glad we touched a little bit about the transgender thing because who submitted this one? California? Or I think it was you, Mario.
Yeah, that was me.
So let me read this out about gender-affirming care and pronouns. So Oregon becomes the fourth jurisdiction to protect LGBTQ kids from conversion therapy. And it says the National Center for Lesbian Rights and the Human Rights Campaign applauded Oregon Governor Kate Brown for signing House Bill 2307 into law, making Oregon the fourth jurisdiction behind California, New Jersey, and the District of Columbia to protect LGBTQ youth from the dangers of conversion therapy. Today, Brown held a bill signing ceremony to celebrate House Bill 2307, which protects LGBTQ youth from mental health providers attempting to change their sexual orientation or gender identity through practices that are linked to sustained abuse, extreme depression, and suicide. It goes into effect immediately. So that's the first thing that comes to mind when I read this is, well, what is gender ideology in schools? Is that not conversion therapy into LGBT?
Yes.
No, not at all. This man, again, I'm sorry. To say, isn't that the same thing that's happening in schools shows either you are so grossly uneducated or you just really don't understand what conversion therapy was. Conversion therapy effectively was torture. These people were there against their will. They were being physically harmed and psychologically terrorized. That is not the same thing that is happening in schools. When you send a child to school, sure, they may be learning about something you don't agree with, like how to be accepting and how to use inclusive language and how a pronoun works in its relation to the use of the English language. That might be upsetting to these people, but these children are not going to be harmed against their will. And that's what they think transitioning is. But at the end of the day, these trans kids have parents who are supporting them. So it's not the teachers who are harming them against their will from their side of view. It would be the parents essentially who are harming them against their will.
So that was my first initial thought, Mario.
Well, I mean,
Think of something like this. Is there going to be a therapist out there that wants to do conversion therapy? Of course.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I'm not going to sit there and say conversion therapy is great or it should be allowed. But if it is happening, you know, put in a law, put it in effect. I don't think that this is happening on a wide scale, especially back in 2015 when this was
Right.
brought into law. I just wonder, like, why are these things happening? Because I feel like now that I've broken away from, you know, the social media side of advocacy and done more on the ground work with like politicians, I'm seeing that people really are doing political stunts with these laws that they want to put in place, and they use it to help push a narrative. And it's like, to this, 8 years ago, what was happening with our community? And I just think back, prides were still wide scale, companies were still doing what they were doing, there was tons of LGBT acceptance, and just to me, I just don't see the rationale for things like this. And if I could see like putting a law in place that parents can't take their kids to this, that I can see, but I would love to see the data on how many
So
people...
you would be okay if there was a homophobic parent who took their child to conversion therapy. He doesn't see the harm in that. He thinks that a law against conversion therapy is a political stunt. Wow.
in California for one, or New Jersey, or the District of Columbia that had conversion therapy therapists.
Right. And we're seeing these 4 states now taking it to the opposite extreme, saying that we'll take your child if you decide to push back against us in any of this, you know, we'll classify it as conversion therapy.
Yeah, if you are abusing your child, the state will take your child away. That's not new. That's been in place for a long time.
Take your child. I see that.
What if a teenager, say like a 16-year-old boy, wants to go see a therapist and says, I've been having these gay feelings and I don't like it. Right? And
Because conversion therapy doesn't work. You cannot change your... What? This is a gay man saying that? He said that, what if somebody actually wanted to go to conversion therapy? So, okay, you think you could change? You were... Oh, God, it's just you follow the lines of logic and you're left nowhere. Because if he's that uncomfortable with a vagina in a dorm room, well, just go to conversion therapy and then college will be easy for you, son. Oh, but you'd think he never went to college.
Like, what if I would have said, you know what, I know most men do not dress up as women. Why do I find pleasure in that?
Right.
Like, what would be wrong with me seeking some sort of therapy or insight?
Because it's not possible to change that. That's who you are. Get a grip. Oh my God.
A mental and emotional health professional. Say, well, why? The average man don't do that, so why do I do it? And is that bad, or is it bad to do it to a child?
Right.
I think right now people need to be more comfortable with asking these difficult questions to be able to find understanding of why we do what we do, right? And this just might be me. I don't think people are born gay. I think this is something that people are conditioned into as in most society, and you see this with like other countries that sexualize children.
Really?
If not sexualizing children was inherently built within us,
These are gay men that think, okay, so they just think being gay is a choice. That's what they think. Ooh, they left these nuggets for the end. What?
then no country would be doing this. But because there are countries that are sexualizing children, to me it shows that sexuality is conditioned into people. And if you support gender ideology, even here in my district, it actually says that sexual orientation is something that is culturally brought up. And so for me, not that being gay is bad, being straight is bad, you like what you like.
Right.
But to sit here and say that there is a gay gene or a gay brain or a gay, neurological whatever, I don't think that weighs heavy in the truth. I think we all like what we like and we're conditioned to like that. And so right now, what we're seeing is California coming in and saying, well, you have to do this. It's like they are the ones that are doing this conversion therapy now on a wide scale.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are forcing this into our books and ideology. So now that we know this, it's like...
So this is almost even preemptive, because if this happened in 2015 and now we're at 2023, they've already put in the laws to protect themselves as they sit there and they try to convert their children.
Right. It's almost like they know the long-term plan.
That's so,
Isn't that creepy?
evil when you think about it.
It really is, because at the end of the day, I know I speak for myself and a lot of other gay people when I say I would have been trans if I was growing up today. And when you look at that, it's like, is there 3 transgender people in this room right now?
Right.
Or is there 3 gay men in this room right now?
Scientifically, there are 3 transgender people in this room right now because we are all biologically women until we receive the right hormones and the right activators to convert our bodies into the male bodies. So technically, we are transgender in the womb. So
It's just gotten to be too much, in my opinion. And these are the things that I don't think our community really talks about. It's like, we were instilled in here that we were born this way. now we're finding out that we're not. And it's okay to admit that we're not born this way. It doesn't mean that being gay is bad.
That's a threat to the plantation, because if it's a choice, then the choice can be to leave, and they don't want to give you a choice.
You know, excuse me. I know that there, and I was one of these gay men who I did get married, you know, and the funny thing is...
You played straight.
See, but it's funny. It's like, you know, I try to figure it out. I try to figure myself out. I really do. And I never considered some people say, well, then you're a bisexual or you're a pansexual, because I had a sexual relationship with a woman for 14 years. And I liked it because it was... I don't want to break it down just to putting mechanics.
Do it how you don't reason and you
Wasn't half of his bit before about how he doesn't want to see a vagina, but yet now, I mean, I'm assuming that his wife had a vagina. It's just, I have whiplash.
Sexual pleasure, and it's coming from another body. Okay, and I don't want to, you know...
It's cleaner to have sex with women than it is to
I
have
do.
sex with men.
Also, they say it's cleaner and it's more biologically makes sense mechanically. And
mechanically.
I mean, I don't know why, because I mean, obviously, a penis was designed to enter a vagina to reproduce. I mean, so I'm not mad at it, but it's like that was just one particular female, and it's like, and I don't know if it was like because you feel like a sense of wanting to create a family, to Xerox yourself or copy yourself and have children. I don't know what it is, part of our culture. And you both come from very strong cultures. Yes, I don't want to, you know.
I also think it's built in us as men. I think it's natural for a lot of men to want to reproduce.
Well, yeah.
It's in us.
It's a human thing.
Yeah, it's a human thing.
It is.
It's not like, oh, you know, you're straight because of this. It's just testosterone built in the body. We're built mechanically. We're built in a certain way to reproduce. Like, that's what we do on this earth.
I mean, and adoption has created a way around that. But if a lot of people are honest, they want their own children.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately, you want your own. And there's nothing wrong with saying it. But my point is, but I always knew I was gay. I was having sex with this female that I enjoyed having sex with. I mean, I would hate for her to see this because I don't want her to hear anything positive. But I did enjoy our sex life. And the thing is, but as a gay man, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed all the men that I've had after that. And I have no need or desire to be with a female again. But for some reason, it was that one. And I'm sure we've all had a girlfriend in our life that we might have had some sort, but this just kind of went after high school and into adulthood. But now, I don't know if you've seen it, but you see a lot of like people saying that that's very selfish. It's very bad to do that. Like, as a, you know, you like men, but you're going to marry a woman, but what if you enjoy the sex with that one person? Like when can you identify as gay but still have sex with a female?
So sexuality can be fluid, but gender can't be fluid? Huh?
I would think in our society you could, because that female can identify as a male.
Now you think you can?
Yeah.
Totally.
And then it's funny, I look back, the woman I was married to, in my mind, she was like a gay man because just the dynamics between us and the relationship. But
what?
Yeah, maybe she's a gay man in a straight woman's body. I don't know. But
and maybe she needs to go to government-sponsored conversion therapy here in California to go ahead and get affirmed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sweet Jesus, there's not even an ending? That's just it. All right, ladies, that about does it for this episode of Dismantling Hate here on my YouTube channel. If you like this content, if you like the sound of my voice, make sure to comment and subscribe. Leave a like if you like the video. All of those things really help to support my channel, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. Thank you for spending this last painful hour with me. So thank you again for joining me on this video, and until the next time, goodbye.
I don't care what others say.